my intuition is that a recession is inevitable, but the market can remain crazy longer than you can remain solvent, whatever the quote is. Why hasn't it happened yet? And how do you think about, because obviously you have similar concerns that I have. Only the paranoid survive, but how do we turn paranoia into an action plan?
Yeah, so everything is right now about mapping out different possibilities. So for example, if we're right now in a conference room and we got board to write on, you and I would write down and would say, okay, World War III takes place. What do you think are the chances of this taking place? Ray Dalio says 50%.
Yes, he
okay?
does.
Jamie Dimon says this is the most dangerous times we've had in America in decades. Okay, cool. So if World War III happens, what happens to the economy? Who's going to be the parties involved? Are we going to be involved purely through proxy, or is there going to be attack here? Then you write down the possibilities. Okay, if this happens, what are you going to do? If this happens, what are you going to do? Then next, what happens if unemployment all of a sudden goes to 7%, 6%? What happens if inflation goes down? What happens if Powell starts lowering rates back down to 5%, 4%? Holy shit, that's going to be crazy. So you got to write all of these different scenarios down. But here's a couple things that we have to be thinking about. And you said, which was fascinating. One, so credit card debt, highest it's ever been. You know what's the craziest thing about credit card debt being the highest it's ever been? Tom, the average interest rate on credit card is the highest it's ever been.
Jesus.
Forget about the debt. So people are worried about the debt. So imagine the interest rates in the last 5 years has gone like this to 23%, or the average is 23% on credit card. You know what 23% means. That means the debt doubles about 2.5 years.
That's like loan shark numbers.
That's loan shark. 3 years, your debt is doubling, right? But that's what we got right now on credit cards. Okay, so our debt is record breaking. The forgiveness for your school loan is gone. So now you have to start paying for it. That's $300-400 a month that people are expecting, I think, October, November starting. Then let's set that part aside. Go to the corporations you were talking about that are borrowing money. This year, their interest payment on corporation that borrowed money is going to end up being around $530 billion. Just interest.
Oh my God.
Next year, it's going to 730. Next year, it's going to 1.1 trillion. In the next 5 years, it's going between 1.3 to 1.5 trillion dollars just on the corporate debt that we're talking about. By the way, next part. Car payment, A credit, no one's affected. Good credit. They're making the credit payments on time. Mortgages, we're not saying anything crazy with people with bad credit not making payments. We're still good. Car payments in subprime, they're seeing a spike in defaults where people are not making car payments. The first sign you're seeing on what's taking place. No problem. Let's go to the next one. That's the scariest one. U.S. has $33 trillion of debt, worst it's ever been, the highest it's ever been. No problem. What does that really mean? Nobody can really figure it out. Here's what it means. Of the money that we have, about 8 trillion of it, the rates are going to recalibrate, and we're going to have new rates that we're going. Every single time the rates go up 1 point, just 1 point for the U.S. government, our interest payments, Tom, increases by $320 billion.
Jesus.
So imagine we raise rates by 3 points. Just interest, it's $1 trillion more per year. If it's 6%, $2 trillion more per year. That's that. Then last thing that I'll just kind of get you to be thinking about. So anytime you want to know if the economy is back to normal, go to Vegas. If Vegas is humming, like, okay, we're good. And always, whenever you go to Vegas, talk to cab drivers and talk to the drivers who are doing Uber. Always ask, how's conventions doing? How are you seeing with traffic? Are you noticing things canceling? No, this has been crazy for us the last 3 months. Everything's good. But if they start seeing a downturn, they're typically an indicator of what's to come. Transportation industry, we consult for a lot of transportation companies at Bilyeu Consulting. One of my friends, I'm about to go meet with them right after this. Their construction company does very well. We have these 3 clients that we have who are doing transportation. 2 of them are doing 100 million, 80 million a year. Numbers are down 40, 50%. One of them is doing $1 billion a year. Their revenue is down 70%.
Oh.
So let's actually talk about transportation. Why would transportation be down 70%? Aren't Walmart, Amazon companies ordering stuff to ship it from here to there? Why would that be lowering? What do they know that we don't know? Again, these are people who have data to insider stuff that we can sit there and say, these are great indicators when you're studying these things on what's going on. Does this mean recession is going to come here? Like I told you earlier when we were talking, my bigger fear is a reverse market crash, which Venezuela just went through, which all of a sudden the rates get lowered and Dow and S&P goes. And Dow goes from 33, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, just goes boom.
Is that just the dollar losing its purchasing power?
Yes, exactly. That's what happens. The more we're printing, like, for example, a Michael Jordan card years ago, a BGS 9.5, sold for $78,000. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. But then all of a sudden, all of these boxes kept entering the marketplace of 1986 Fleer. So guys started buying these things and they were sending more to get graded at Beckett and PSA. The more they got cards graded, that $78,000 card, BGS 9.5, became a $60,000 card, $50,000 card, $40,000 card, $30,000 card. You can probably buy BGS 9.5 today for $20,000, $25,000, okay? So the inventory increases the more we print money. The more you print dollars and it's more accessible, the less it's valued, the less it's worth. So these are some things that's going on today. You sit there and you're like, okay, so does this mean guys are not going to make a lot of money? No. You're going to see the first trillionaire in the next 24 months because none of this is going to affect the guys at the top. None of it. This printing money, every time they print money, the guys at the top make more money. If there's anybody that should be against printing money, it's low and middle income families. If there's anybody that should be against printing money, it's them. If there's anybody that's for printing money, guess who it is? The guys at the top. Why? Because the poor and middle America can't keep money. They spend it. And when they spend it, what do they buy? A product owned by somebody in the S&P 500 or other people who have businesses. Money flows up. They can keep printing money all they want. So when low and middle income families are like, look at these guys. All they care about is themselves. Let that bill pass for $2.7 trillion. You simply look at them and you say, you have no clue how money works. You have no idea how money works. Now, guess what? Let's print $10 trillion. The rich are okay with it. You ain't going to get the rich complaining about printing $10 trillion or $5 trillion. BlackRock's going to be like, all right, cool. We're at $8 to $10 trillion of money in our ETFs, and we're buying up a bunch of different companies. We're buying up all these properties today. Right now, it's going to be nothing. But in the next few years, you have to go through us, and we dictate the market, and we're going to own it all. And what are you going to do about it? These are a lot of different moving parts that is going on to me. And again, for me, the idea of middle America not being able to make the money they need to make to be able to afford a house, send their kids to school, live in a nice place, enjoy some of their dreams, maybe not the biggest ones, but some of their dreams are going to become a reality. Middle America is getting smaller and smaller and smaller every single time we print money.
For people that don't understand the mechanisms of printing money, it goes like this. You have to have a mechanism by which you put this new money that you created out of thin air by fiat, literally just saying it now exists. You have to put it into the system. The way it's put into the system is by buying assets, because typically low and middle income people don't buy assets. They buy products, like you were saying. Then they aren't beneficiary of that unless there are stimulation checks. Now, those they will get sent directly to them. So there are ways to put it in their pocket. But what you're effectively doing is socializing losses. So you are spreading the loss out across everybody. Because while I get it that because I own assets, I'm going to be disproportionately either protected or actually gain, the gain isn't real. And so it's really, I'm looking at the prices going up and it makes me feel like, oh, I really did something. But in the end, I didn't. In the end, it just, my dollar buys less. And so it takes more dollars to buy the same thing because nothing fundamentally happened. The business that I own a piece of did not become more productive and therefore can actually generate more by adding more value to the world. So once you understand that, like I actually, as a wealthy person, do complain when people print money because I'm like, hey, there is a point at which you break everything because the money is just going to hyperinflate, and it isn't only going to be the stock market that goes up. It's going to be the cost of bread and gas and taking your family to a movie and all of that. And so, look, I'm conflicted. In fact, Patrick Bet David, you're going to educate me here. I'm conflicted about money printing because the only reason I got into doing financial content and quite frankly, learning about financial content or finance in general, was because of COVID. When COVID happened, this was me not being very far out from having worked at Quest, and I had 1,000 employees in the inner cities. And I was like, they're all going to get obliterated. I'll be fine. I'll still be rich on the other side of this, but they're going to get wiped out because I didn't know money printing. I didn't know that they were going to socialize losses. And in doing that, that actually kept us from going into something that probably should have been worse than the Great Depression. And they money printed their way out of it. And we ended up being okay because it was spread across a lot of people. Now, I hate that I was taxed without it being acknowledged as a tax. And I feel that I've paid an inordinate amount of money. But if that's what stops everybody from going into a horrendous depression, I don't know. I don't know that it was a bad idea, but I know that because I am such a student of Ray Dalio, I know that governments, once they start money printing, they can't stop. And every time in human history that has been used as a tool, it's used until it breaks. Until it breaks, every time, without exception. And that typically, as it's racing towards breaking, I think it's 8 out of the last 14 times it's ended up in a hot war. So usually as the big debt cycle, go watch Ray Dalio's video, as the big debt cycle comes to an end and money's inflating away to nothing, debt is completely out of control, nobody can make their payments, everybody's defaulting, you have to have a complete reset of the wealth, which is, I think, why everybody calls this the Great Reset or the Big Reset or whatever, because we are actually forestalling catastrophe right now by printing, but we are only forestalling it. And I've had a lot of people on the show, nobody can tell me how you pull out of this death spiral other than austerity, and no one's gonna do fucking austerity. If you like that clip, check out another powerful clip right here, and I'll see you there.